Welcome back to the High School of Kids program. Today we're doing Zainu Beis and Moed Katan. Today's Gemara is going to really describe a lot about Mitzuras. I want to give a little bit of background on the process of how a Mitzura becomes a Mitzura, a leper, someone who has this skin issue that appears white and it becomes tameh, impure, and sent inside the camp, how that works, and how it becomes pure, comes back inside the camp. So, first level is he's tahar, he's pure. And then when he sees some white skin, it could either be judged as a white skin that's tahar, no problem, stays tahar, great. Otherwise, it could be seen by the Kohen and it doesn't have the absolute, it has some signs of Tumah to be a Mitzora, so he's quarantined muskar. And then the Kohen has the option of either, after 1 week or 2 weeks, deciding that he is either tahar, it goes back to tahar, or he is tameh. Mukhla. Mukhla means decidedly tameh. Not quarantined, but decidedly tameh. And then lastly is, after he's decidedly tameh, and then he becomes pure, well, then he has to go through the purifying process, and he has to send away some birds and shave, and another week brings some more karbanos, and then he becomes tahar again. That's the story. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated. So in this chart, I made it with all the different applications where it depends on what the Kohen says. If there is some tumah, well, then he becomes tar automatically. He's going to absolutely become tameh. And if there's no siman tumah, so then he sees the white skin, and then he says, well, he has to be quarantined. And then it goes week 1, and it goes to week 2. If it remains the same, he goes to week 2. If it gets dimmer and goes away, well, then from either week 1 or week 2, it becomes tar. But basically, the same sort of process. He goes from being tar to being quarantined to being decidedly tameh, and then to becoming the meisfiro, which is a purification process. Send away birds 1 week, great, and then he comes to becoming tar. Okay, now here's the halachas according to Rashi. So Rashi tells about this box, but the basic point is that could the Mitzora be in company of other people? So while he's tar, absolutely. When he is quarantined, he is allowed to. Once he's mukhlad, he's decidedly tameh. He has to be sent aside 3 camps. Cannot be meisfiro. He could be together with other people again. And then what about in terms of his wife? When is there a prohibition to be with his wife? So according to Rashi, is when he's tar is certainly mutter. According to everybody, but according to Rashi, they're forbidden from each other when he's quarantined muskar, and Tosfos says that's permitted. Mukhlad is definitely permitted, and then meisfiro and his purification process, that's for sure forbidden according to everybody. So now the Gemara starts with the Mishnah. The Mishnah begins. Rabbi Meir Omer Ronet Nagayim Lahakel V'Lahachmir. Omrim Lahakel V'Lahachmir. Could you, if you're a Kohen, see a nega of saran on a person on Chol Moed and declare him as being tar or tameh or not? Rabbi Meir says you're allowed to do it if it's going to be lenient for him, but not if it's going to be strict for him. If it's going to make him more lenient, we'll describe exactly what that's about. But if he's going to make him tar, well, that's for sure fine because it's going to make his holiday much better. It's a positive application of Samach B'Gech, I'll have a great holiday. Wonderful. But you can't be machmer on him. If you're going to make him tummy in the middle of the holiday, he's going to be sad. He's going to be quarantined away from people, his wife or other people. And you know what? That's a problem. And it's a violation of Simchas Yantiv. Bad idea. You can't do it. Can't make him tummy. So you're just going to delay. The Kohen's not supposed to tell him, wait until after Yantiv and Chol Moed, and then you'll tell him. Some of them say you can't see him at all. If you can't give him half an answer. If you see it and you see his tummy, you have to tell him he's tummy. If you see his tar, you tell him his tar. So therefore, you shouldn't see him at all, whether not to be strict or to be lenient. You don't tell him anything. You don't look at him. Tanya. The Rebbe says, a Kohen is allowed to see the nega, and if it's to be lenient, he's allowed to rule that way and tell him his tar, and if not, it's to be stringent, he's not allowed to say anything. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yosef says you're not supposed to see him at all, not for stringency or for leniency, because if you're going to see him to be lenient, well, then you also should be strict as well. You have to pass him whatever comes up. Amar Rebbe, near the Rebbe Meir, Rebbe says, I want to compromise between these two opinions in the following manner, and we'll describe this a little bit more explicitly later, what this is all about. I follow Rebbe Meir's opinion they're allowed to see him when it comes to a muskor, a quarantined person, but do Rebbe Yosef and Mukhla when it's decidedly tameh, that you don't see it. We'll describe the reason for this on the base. that certainly if someone was tahar, and the only question is, do you make them tameh? Well, there's no reason to see him because that's just going to make his holiday worse. There's no upside to that. And ben Rabbi Yossi, ben Rabbi Meir, you're not supposed to see him. If the person's the first week the first week of quarantine, certainly you're allowed to see him because either he could potentially becoming tar, that's great, or he could be second week tameh. So there's really nothing to be so concerned about, and therefore he's no real loss here. Either stay the same or it's going to be better for him. So you're allowed to see him. Kipligi, what about Hesker Sheni? It's the second week quarantine. Now you become actually tameh, or you can go back to being tar. So that's the machlokah. Marza Rukoin Talia Milta, Tar Amrle, Tar Itame Shasik. Right? Meir says you're allowed to see him and decide whether you're going to tell him something or not. If he's tar, you could tell him, Amrle Tar, tell him he's pure. And Itame Shasik, you keep your mouth shut if he is tameh. Marza Rabbi Yosef is not Latar Latamik. It says in the Torah you have to make a tameh or tar. It's up to you. But you have to, when you see the nega, so it's a mitzvah to tell him, and he's not allowed to keep his mouth shut. The Brisa tells us, Amar Mar, Amar Rebbe, near the Rabbi Yossi, B'Mochlad, Rabbi Meir, B'Moskar. We follow the opinion of Rabbi Meir that you're supposed to see Nagaim when they're quarantined, but not supposed to see on Chol Moed if they are Mochlad decidedly Tameh, and Vatani Ibcha, the Brisa teaches otherwise. Tonight, what these two versions all about, this compromise it's based on, it depends on the following. Aliba de Rebbe. They're arguing about the following idea within opinion of Rebbe. Marzav that the company of other friends is more important to a person, and Marzav the company of his wife is more important to him. So what's that exactly based on? So if we look at the chart over here, the idea is if he cares about the company of his friends, well, then you're not allowed to see him when he is quarantined because it could make him forbidden from his friends. He could become muchalad. Well, that's really bad. If he's going from quarantine to muchalad, then he's going to be away from his friends. That's not okay. If he's muchalad, well, then there's only potential to stay usher to his friends or potentially become mutter to his friends. So that's the second brisa, that's a tiny ibcha. And the other brisa says, well, let's focus on his wife. So he's forbidden from his wife when he is me'esfira, and he's mutter when he's muchalad. So you're not allowed to say when he's muchalad because if potentially what's going to happen is he's going to become usher to his wife, so that's a problem. You can't say that. But if he's muskar, well, the only potential is he's either becoming mukhla, which makes him permitted to his wife according to Rashi, or according to Tosafos, it just stays the same, so that's okay. But mukhla, you're not allowed to tell him. That's the first brisa. That divrei meir by muskar means you're allowed to see him. That's the ishto, safti ishto adiplay. Doesn't that show that, in our understanding, that the person who's mukhla is permitted to his wife, as we had in the chart? Yes, that's true. That a person, when he's in the purification process, stays outside his tent for 7 days. What does that mean? It's a reference to his wife. The Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah told Klal Yisrael that they are supposed to go back to their tents, meaning they're mutter to their wives. They're separated 3 days before Matan Torah from their wives. Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Yamim Yisperu Lo Yisperu. There are 7 days he's supposed to count for his purification process, and only those days away from his wife, and not the days of chaluto, not the days of his. That's when he's also from his wife, but he's not also from his wife when it is decidedly tamei. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that we've been describing until now. However, there's a different opinion to note. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Omer Shimon is Sphiro. He's from his wife when he's in the purification process. But Kava Chomer is more important, more strict during the days of Chaluta when he's decidedly tamei. He certainly should be forbidden his wife. Leimei Chaluta. Amar Rabbi Chia v'dan d'leminei Rabbi Lamanti Rabbeinu. Rabbi Chia says, I heard from my master Rabbi that Yotam, the son of Uzziah, one of the kings of Israel, he was in Malchi Yehuda. He was. He had a child, Uzziah had a child, Yozam, when he was a Mitzorah for a very long time, and even though he was decidedly tamei, he was able to have children, and that shows like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. I also agree with that opinion. That's what Rabbi responded to Rabbi Chia. What are they arguing? Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yehuda suffered gali rachamana b'mei sphira kol shekein b'mei chaluta. He says if it's forbidden during the purification process, certainly it's forbidden during the decidedly tamei process. Rabbi Yehuda says, well, we only know during the sphira, we only know during the purification process, no, not over here, and therefore it's permitted over there. The member to Kohen Tali Milta, according to Rabbi, we said before, he's up to him to decide whether he's going to say anything. Yes, that's true. And we can prove this from Brisa. It says there's a day that you're going to see him, and you decide he's telling me or not. It says in the pasuk Yom on that day, meaning implying that there is days that you tell him and days that you don't tell him. Mikanam we see for a mitzvah chasan no logo nega. Chasan just got married. It's his shevarachas for 7 days. He has simcha. So you give him a week off to tell him anything about his mitzvah. So you don't make him have hardship. No logo nega no neloshim meshta lo leveto luksuta. For him, his wife, his clothing, you don't do any mitzvah stuff with him or his clothing or his wife during that week of shevarachas to have simcha. Regel also on regel for everybody. No neloshim regel to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Omer Inusar Omer. Rabbi says I have a different source. That the Kohen could tell the homeowner, I want you to empty out your house from the utensils inside before I make your house to be having sarat. Because if your house has sarat, well, then it's going to be matame, everything inside of it. And that might cause you a loss or hardship. So therefore he says, well, I'll wait for you to take everything out before I declare it to be tummy. So if we wait for the person for a mundane thing to just save money, certainly for a mitzvah, for the shavar brachas or for the regel, we would not pass him being a tzor. What's the difference between these two opinions? There's no real difference. It's just which pasuk do you learn it from? The difference is, are you allowed to wait for a rishus, for a tumah of the person, not just a tumah of the house? Rebbe says that you even wait for rishus, and the first opinion, Rabbi Yehuda, says that you don't wait for rishus. Rabbi Yehuda mehazam lo gamrinan. We can't learn from the house to the person because it's slightly different types of tumah, because that is a aberration of the halacha that there is just sticks and stones, and usually they're not tameh a house, and yet by sarat they become tameh. So we can't learn from there that you wait for him. So over there we're supposed to wait for him, but not for the tumah of a person. Rabbi Amar Israel. Rabbi says I have two sources, and they're both true, and they both apply to people and houses. We're supposed to wait for dvar rishus and dvar mitzvah. Well, why do I need two sources? The ikad are going to be a bo. If I only have the source that you're supposed to wait for him the day, and certain days you have to wait, meaning mitzvah days like shavar brachas or regel. Haven't been the dvar mitzvah in the dvar rishus law. I'd only know that you're supposed to wait for a mitzvah, but not for dvar rishus, not for mundane purposes. Never says also teach us the idea that you wait for mundane things. Siva Kohen to tell him take out his stuff so it doesn't become tummy and cause him a loss. You could have one of his Kohen, if it only said that, have Amina Hani in to allow him to go. I would say the only time we know that there's a concept of waiting for things is because of the house becoming tummy. It's not a real person becoming tummy, so it's just things that's just big chiddush in the world of tumah of sarat. About tumah de gufe ima mechsechazile, and maybe when it comes to a person's body, if you saw it, then you have to tell him, and therefore you can't wait. And sricha, therefore we have to know about the pasuk Yom Haropo, that the day you see it, you could tell him or not tell him. And therefore, once we know there's a concept of waiting, so we can wait for dvar rishus and dvar mitzvah when it comes to telling about a tumah of sarat.